ICT in the government of the Republic of Uganda in June 2006. The ministry was created by His Excellency the President, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, to ensure that the communications and information technologies are enabled to play a key role in the development and transformation of the economy and social infrastructure of the country. Prior to his appointment, Dr. Mulira was the Executive Director of Uganda Computer Services, UCS. The appointment, the Government of Uganda Information Technology Department being transformed into the National IT Authority in Uganda, the World Bank funded project under the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, NAT-EU, shall be responsible for the monitoring, coordination and support of IT initiatives in Uganda. He was also the chairman of Uganda Computer Society and a part-time lecturer at the Institute of Computer Science at Macquarie University. He was the general manager, Management Information Services, MIS. He was with Uganda Commercial Bank Limited, now Stanbic Uganda, the largest bank in the world, the largest bank in Uganda, and led the nationwide computerization of all the 67 branches. He served as the teaching and research assistant at the London School of Economics, LSE, and a software engineer, City Systems in UK Limited. This is the man in UK. He was also a lecturer at Macquarie University, Kampala, and has undertaken numerous consultancies in the field of IT for the World Bank, UNDP, UNESCO, UNICEF, and the government. He has also conducted and supervised research in various aspects of IT, both in Uganda and the United Kingdom, and was the chairman of ICT Task Force, Big Push Strategy, Uganda Investment Authority. He was a member of the ICT Advisory Committee, Uganda Investment Authority, member ICT National Council of Science and Technology, and is an executive committee member, Uganda National Academy of Sciences. That is his background. And we're going to interrupt that. Let me continue with the last part of Dr. Mukasa's bio. He holds an MSc, I think that's a Master's in Science, in London, Loughborough University of Technology, UK. Has a PhD in Statistical Computing, University of London. Imperial College, the London School of Economics, UK. Dr. Mulira has followed and been part of the IT evolution in Uganda with a keen eye on global developments. He has developed a lot of software ranging from business application, system utilities, statistical analysis and computer games, including the traditional Uganda game of Mweso. That is Dr. Mulira, our Minister for Technology, Information and Communication Technology, ICT Republic of Uganda. He'll be here in a minute. We want to wait for the Vice President to enter, then invite.
I told you, don't worry about it.
I just need to take a few pictures and I'll go to that.
Is it running?
Just
Excellency, the Vice President of the Republic of Uganda, the President of Uganda North American Association, UNAA, honorable ministers present here, Your Excellencies, the ambassadors, political leaders, dignitaries and business leaders from Uganda and the USA, members of UNAA, well-wishers for Uganda, fellow Ugandans, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed, and for those in IT, that includes addressing such a distinguished audience of fellow countrymen so far away from home, and yet all to do with home. At the 19th Uganda North American Association Convention, UNAA. It gives me further particular delight to be here amongst many people who I know, some and others in many different capacities, with amongst other things a similar calling, which is to do all that they can to make it a better place for all at home. There was one great thinker who once said, "A different world cannot be built by indifferent people." It therefore gives me great pleasure to be here amongst people who are truly not only indifferent, but are clearly pulled together for a common cause, that is to do what they can, give what they can, and assist how they can to continually build a different and better Uganda, and not only for their own, but for all. However, we should always ensure that in all that we do, we foster working together with mutual respect and affection, striving through the active service to develop, not destroy, encourage, not discourage, provide hope and inspiration, not despair and destitution. This in turn should be passed on to our future generations of Ugandans, our children, many of whom we have seen here tonight, whether they physically live in Uganda or in the diaspora, like here, for instance. Thus, we'll be able to build a confident, prosperous, and upright society on which great nations and economies are made of. We may have differences amongst ourselves, but on a national level, as Ugandans, we should always strive to work as one. There is a Ugandan saying which says, "Aboluganda bita." How does it end? Aboluganda bita. Webikonagana tebyatika. This literally means that brethren are like pots of brew. Even if they knock against each other, they do not break. In countries like even the USA, there may be differences in beliefs, religious, political, or otherwise. But when it comes to matters concerning their nation, their great nation, in an overall context, they all act as one, as proud Americans. It is therefore extremely pleasing to note that despite our various differences here tonight, we are acting as proud Ugandans and celebrating being Ugandan. In history, we learned that Columbus set sail to discover a shorter, more direct route to India by heading west across the Atlantic on what he presumed to be an open sea route, a new open sea route to the East Indies. India was famed for gems, silk, spices, and pearls, a source of untold riches. When Columbus set sail, he assumed that the world was round, which is why he was convinced that he could get to India by traveling west. Although he did not get to India, he still discovered another land mass, That landmass, which later became the wealthiest on the globe, is this where we're sitting tonight, America. One thing was, though, he confirmed that the world indeed is round. Many centuries later, which is a few years ago, a world-renowned journalist called Thomas Friedman set out for India by flying due east from Europe. He too was searching for India's riches. Columbus was searching for hardware in form of precious metals, spices, silk, etc. The traditional sources of wealth. Friedman was searching for software. That is, brain power, knowledge workers, call centers, complex algorithms, the new sources of wealth. Columbus accidentally ran into America and thought he had discovered a part of India. Friedman, on the other hand, found India and discovered that many people there were Americans, in quotes, because of all the innovative and technological things they were doing, which had always been associated with America. He came to realize that owing to the massive investment in technology, broadband connectivity around the world, undersea fiber optic cables, computers becoming cheaper and more widely accessible, an explosion of software, email, internet, search engines like Google, etc. Time and geographical space had been redefined and collapsed into the virtual world. In this type of world, people had become. It was therefore possible to compete for global knowledge in what is now referred to as the global village. It is now possible for more people than ever to collaborate and compete in real time with more other people on more different kinds of work from different corners of the planet and on a more equal footing than at any other previous time in the history of the world. Using computers, email, fiber optic networks, teleconferencing, and dynamic new software. Friedman, therefore, that the playing field had been leveled or flattened, and so concluded that today the world is flat. This became, of course, the title of his famous book called The World is Flat, The Globalized World in the 21st Century. Owing to the flattening of the world, we are now connecting all knowledge centers on the planet together into a single global network, which could usher in an amazing era of prosperity, innovation, and collaboration by nations, companies, communities, and individuals. We as a nation, Uganda, have the challenge and opportunity to not only be part of that new world, that new flat world, but a significant chunk of that world. I'm sorry, I'm made to understand that His Excellency the Vice President has entered, so we'll pause briefly and recognize his presence. Could you please stand up? permission, I shall proceed where we had ended. The next part of my talk is to do with the theme, which is technology and diversity, resources for development. Therefore, this brings me to the theme of this year's convention, which is technology and diversity, resources for development. Firstly, I wish to thank the leaders and organizers of this year's UNAA convention for having recognized the need to address this challenge towards making Uganda play its role in this new flat world. It should be noted that the theme is wide enough to cover a whole, almost infinite spectrum of concepts on technology and diversity. Conversely, it also allows for flexibility to work within defined contexts and limits. One such limit is the time which I was given to give this talk on the subject tonight. Technology is a term with origins in the Greek, which is technologia. Even in Uganda, interestingly, in vernacular, we also refer to it as technologia, which is a combination of the terms techne, which is craft, and logia, which is saying. Technology is a broad concept that deals with a usage and knowledge of tools and crafts and how it affects the ability to control and adapt to one's environment. It is a consequence of science and engineering, although several technological advances predate the two concepts. The human race's uses of technology began with the conversion of natural resources into simple tools. The discovery of the ability to control fire increased the available sources of food, and the invention of the wheel helped humans in traveling in and controlling their environment. Recent technological developments, including the printing press, the telephone, especially the mobile phone, and the internet, have lessened physical barriers to communication and allowed humans to interact on a global scale. In one of his speeches, His Excellency, the President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, discussed what he called the primer of society's evolution. He states that in social evolution terms, the primer is the change in science and technology. When there is change in science and technology, that is the primer that causes changes in society. For instance, when the early human beings invented fire, there were a lot of changes. Before fire was invented, they were living in trees. They were tree dwellers because they feared to go into caves, as they could not see what was inside the caves. They were moving around the trees using their arms, so they had strong arms. When they invented fire, however, it meant that they could go into the caves and light fire. They would expel the darkness and warm the interior of the otherwise very damp caves, thereby chasing snakes from there. They now stopped being tree dwellers and became cave dwellers, homes. The invention of the fire, therefore, was the primer for big change in society. Instead of people being tree dwellers, they became cave dwellers. Tonight we saw two presentations from Arkwright and Kensington, where we moved on a bit from the caves to very modern, fancy homes. But instead of eating raw food, they started eating roasted food. This meant that their digestive systems also changed. So did their physiology. If you no longer had to gnaw, that is to crush nuts, then strong jaws were no longer required. So the face could afford to look a bit more shapely because you're eating softer food. These changes arose out of a simple invention of fire. The 20th century was indeed historical in science and technology terms. Man made strides in science and technology in the last 60 years, more than he has ever made in the history of mankind. In transportations, aeroplanes have become larger and faster, creating physical links of any part of the globe within hours. A telephone can link any 2 points on the globe for a conversation, thereby collapsing distance into a virtual quantity. However, the term which now is referred to as Information and Communications Technology, ICT. ICT in Uganda. In the globalized world or global village, it is important to ask questions such as, at the national level, where does my country fit into this global village? How can it take advantages of the opportunities of the global village? What is required to enable participation in the global village? Infrastructure, market, human resources, etc. At the company level or institutional level, we ask ourselves, where does my company fit into the global economy? How does it take advantage of the opportunities? How can I go corporate, global, with others within my company? At the individual level, the personal level, given the power of the technologies which have empowered individuals, how can an individual collaborate and compete globally? How is an individual's private life affected by technological empowerment? These questions are best answered by using a multidimensional, concerted approach between governments, the private sector, and the citizens. Many countries have taken heed and adopted and adapted ICTs in their national development and transformation. Countries which not so long ago were plodding on, such as India, Malaysia, Mauritius, Singapore, Thailand, and others, have quantum leaped out of the realm of poor and undeveloped countries to being considered at the helm of technological advancement and wealth. In Uganda, like is the case elsewhere in the world, we are living in an information age in which ICT is recognized as a valuable tool in shaping our plans and activities and helping us determine the correct and most effective strategies in our country's development and transformation agenda. After the elections of 2006, His Excellency the President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni created a new Ministry of ICT to accelerate development of information and communications technology sector under one political leadership to coordinate its activities. We are greatly honored, that is, myself, as having been appointed the minister responsible for this sector, and my colleague, who has walked in, His Excellency the Vice President, Honorable John Alintuma Nsambu, if I may request him to. We had to start the ministry from scratch. When I say from scratch, at one point we used to sit on the same desk with the state minister because it was a new ministry, no offices, no infrastructure, and we used to share a desk. So we started it from scratch. And we're very proud and pleased to state today it is a fully fledged ministry with full structures, with its own premises and technical and administrative staff in place. Previously, as indeed in many countries, Uganda's information and communications technology environment was spread across different ministries and therefore did not have a single point of focus and ownership that took into account the multi-sectoral, cross-cutting nature of ICT. Since its establishment, our ministry has been steadfast and committed to attaining predictability, regularity, consistency, and transparency in all ICT-related government initiatives affecting the sector. with the combination of the right national agenda and its effective implementation through elaboration of the legal environment for development of the sector and development of the infrastructure itself, including e-government. I shall mention in my closing remarks a bit more about that. There is no doubt that information and communication technologies, ICTs, have greatly promoted social productivity, improved people's quality of life, and fundamentally changed the way people work and live. Therefore, developing the ICT industry and promoting informatization or digitization has become a strategic choice, an inevitable strategic choice for all economies, ours in the region being no exception, to promote economic and social development and improve people's quality of life. Indeed, few would disagree that technology underpins the unprecedented levels of prosperity enjoyed by the developed countries like the USA. This scope and pace of recent change is a function of revolutionary advances in ICTs. As such, ICTs have been key enablers of globalization, facilitating worldwide flows of information, capital, ideas, people, and products. However, this backdrop of ICT-enabled social and economic opportunity also has some sobering statistics. It is sad to note that 1/3 of the world's population have not realized the benefits enabled by ICTs. A big proportion of that is also in our own country. This is a reality for which we have a shared responsibility. Governments, the private sector, the civil society, Ugandans in the diaspora. We have tackled the harnessing of ICTs in a structured manner. We've started by looking at the infrastructure. We need a reliable and affordable communications infrastructure. On that account, we have established a fiber backbone, a project to lay a national data transmission fiber backbone. And this backbone is also coupled with an infrastructure for electronic government that is linking all government ministries using fiber optic for information sharing and others. For the general national backbone, we're connecting all district capitals in the country with fiber optic. As we speak, we have only completed phase 1, which is connected all ministries in Kampala and Entebbe, and connecting Jinja, Bombo, Entebbe, and Kampala. Phase 2 is about to start. The contextualizing of this backbone is because of the overall need procedures for the EGI, enhancing transparency and accountability, creating credible and timely information available to all citizens, providing all services in an efficient and cost-effective manner. ICT we're going to have for e-government, government to citizens, that is government service provision to citizens, government to the business community and vice versa, and government to government departments, which is the phase which we're about to complete. Coupled with that, we also liberalized the telecommunications sector completely. So we are proud to say that now we have even 2 more service providers for all telecommunication services in Uganda. So now we have a total of 5 service providers, generating competition, reduced costs to the ultimate consumer, and better services, quality of service. This slide here shows the setup with the 3 service providers. I don't think it's very clear, you can't see it in the distance. This is a slide which shows the backbone phases. The little bit in yellow is the bit which we have completed in phase 1, because that's where most of the economic activity is also taking place right now. That slide just goes to show the different areas where e-government is going to be effective within the project. Coupled with that, we also need the availability of technically skilled human resource. We have the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University is here, he's just given a talk. Makerere University now has a population of over 30,000, but the Faculty of Computing and IT in Makerere University now has a student population of 5,000, taking all different types of courses in IT and computer science. And many other universities are also developing the necessary technical human resource. We also need the availability of affordable hardware, that is computers. We have projects on ground which are bringing in affordable computers, refurbished computers from the developed world, like from here. We also have battery-driven to cater for the lack of electricity in certain places. We also need the creation of a market for business process outsourcing, that is for call centers and general outsourcing purposes. We have put in place a team which is working on the best model for the BPO industry in Uganda, and we expect the availability of this model by the end of October. We also have the promotion of software development industry with partners such as Microsoft, who we intend to set up Microsoft innovation centers within the country for harnessing local software development for international gain. We also have, together with the Uganda Investment Authority, promotion of hardware assembly. We have a firm from the US which is coming into Uganda to assemble initially computers on a wide scale to use Uganda as a hub for promotion of cheap computers or affordable computers within the region. In addition to all this, there has to be a legal framework within which the technologies can be used. Coupled with the technology itself, we have worked on the legal framework for electronic transactions. We have what we refer to as cyber laws. We have the electronic transactions bill, which is going to regulate the electronic transactions, e-commerce. We have the digital signatures and the computer misuse bill. We're also looking at continuous promotion of linkages with the global companies in ICT. Indeed, even in this very trip, we're looking at, since we're in the Bay, looking at interactions with companies in the Bay like HP, Google, and others. In conclusion, the spread of ICT in Uganda has further asserted the belief that through the facilitation of information and knowledge, our country has unprecedented opportunities to enhance educational systems, improve policy formulation and execution, and expand the range of opportunities for income generation and socio-economic change, especially amongst the rural poor. ICT has facilitated learning and knowledge sharing, generated global information flows, empowers citizens and communities in ways that have redefined various aspects of our life, the mobile phone being one such device. I should mention here a statistic that between June 2006 and June 2007, the number of mobile phone users rose by 1.5 million subscribers. By June 2006, we had 2.2 million subscribers, mobile phone subscribers. And June 2007, we have 3.7 million subscribers, and the number is growing exponentially. This in the United States may not seem like a very high figure, but it's not where you are that matters, it's where you're heading. And I think we're heading in the right direction. Information and communication technology is now an integral part of higher education. The increasing demand and access to higher education implies the need for ICT institutions, now more than ever before. However, the work required to get ICTs fully fledged requires inputs from all of us, including yourselves here. We need to utilize your experiences, your exposures, technical competencies, business links, financial support to help achieve the dream of making Uganda take a large chunk of the flat world. Gakyali Mabaga. Your assistance, even if it is to buy and send a computer to your old school, or to pay for internet connection for your old school, or to sponsor a young child to go to one of the many training schools, or to actually ship computers, or to actually bring students for graduate studies and support them, I think all this is most welcome. And this is the challenge which I would like to leave with you, our Ugandans in the diaspora. I conclude by thanking the President of UNAA and the rest of the management team and organizers for having arranged this excellent 19th convention. I also congratulate all of you who have attended this congregation and made it so colorful. Indeed, there was a speaker who said here, and I had already noted it, but when he said it, I noted it even further. It's really a very colorful gathering. I, in particular, would like to single out, starting with His Excellency the Vice President, Professor Gilbert Bukenya, for having made it all the way here to honor this grand occasion. Thank you, sir. For the honorable ministers, the political leaders here, from the diversity of politics in the country, the business leaders, government officials, and all of you members of UNAA for being here and making it such a colorful occasion. Of course, I wish to thank all the sponsors for having contributed towards making all this possible. For all those who exhibited, our young models who came, our young children who came around to assist, our brothers and sisters in northern Uganda who came around, and I'm sure we all contributed generously. I wish to also express my sincere gratitude for having given me this honor and privilege and opportunity to address a gathering like yourselves on this very important new primer for social evolution, ICT. Let us use the experiences we have learned during our stay in North America and translate all these into the development and transformation of our lovely country, the Pearl of Africa, Uganda, for God and my country.
That was a wonderful, informative ICT presentation by the Minister. And give him a big round of applause. We're going to run through the